It doesn't matter how much I ended up making or losing. The point is how I traded was so bad, in my opinion, that it is in no way how anyone should personally trade, in my opinion. And if you do it, you're putting yourself at an immense risk, which I certainly did today. Like I said, I got out of it green. I dodged a bullet. But, I think a lot of people would hear that and be like, oh, okay, Kyle, it's fine. Like, okay, it's okay. You turned out green. That's the goal of this game is to make money, and you did that. So no big deal. And it's like, no, that's not how I got here. I didn't make 2.7 million trading this way. What is up, guys? Welcome back to Twist. Today is going to be different. As you can see, Jack or Mariano is not here. No special guest. It's just me. And that's because today was a very emotionally draining, energy draining day. I know, just putting myself in Jack and Mariano's shoes, they left it all on the table today. They are MIA. I'm sure they're taking a break. They're stepping away. They certainly stepped away after the morning. I'm sure they never came back to the market. I stayed the entire day. I did not necessarily drain myself too hard, although today was took a lot of energy. And I tweeted about it. I just said today was a really, really poor, embarrassing trading day. And I'm going to go into detail. Like, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent here. We're going to talk about it. So we'll get into it. We'll go into detail about my trades specifically today. I'm filming this on Tuesday, November 2nd. I just did my monthly recap yesterday. So it's going to kind of be a mini version of that, but just today. I think it just needs to be really gone over because, we've never done a Twist episode where I'm just rambling to myself. We always have either a guest or other hosts. But I think it's important today that I go over this and we really dive in deep, just so you can learn from my mistakes, and I can review my mistakes, and hopefully you can get better and I can get better. I know I need to get better after today because today was unacceptable. So let's jump in. Before I jump into the charts, let me just talk about what happened. So it's such a great lesson because this is one of those things where I ended up green on a trade. I ended up green actually on all my trades today. I was 5 for 5 today on trades. But one specifically was so bad. And I broke so many rules that it doesn't matter how much I was up or down. Like, it doesn't matter. Not to say that. It doesn't matter how much I ended up making or losing. The point is how I traded was so bad, in my opinion, that it is in no way how anyone should personally trade, in my opinion. And if you do it, you're putting yourself at an immense risk, which I certainly did today. Like I said, I got out of it green. I dodged a bullet. But, I think a lot of people would hear that and be like, oh, okay, Kyle, it's fine. Like, okay, it's okay. You turned out green. That's the goal of this game is to make money, and you did that. So no big deal. And it's like, no, that's not how I got here. I didn't make 2.7 million trading this way, trading recklessly, avoiding losses, not learning how to take losses. I know how to do that. I've been doing that my entire career. That's what's kept me safe. That's what's got me to this point. Today, I did not do that, and I got away with it. And we'll talk about why I got away with it and how it's something that, it's easier for people with bigger accounts to get away with. So in a way, it's like it makes sense how I got to this point. But if I ever did this when I was starting off trading in the beginning, I wouldn't be here. So, and most people who are watching this are probably newer, or at least haven't made 2.7 million, or haven't been trading for 5-6 years like I have. So I really want this lesson to be kind of drilled in history on the interwebs of YouTube. That like, if you do what I did today as a starting beginning trader, say goodbye to any future career you have. And even me being 5 or 6 years in, like, if I was any more aggressive today, I mean, it could have been very, very bad. And I know a lot of traders who got crushed today. So let's, I haven't really even talked about the tickers. So let's jump into the charts. Let's just start analyzing them from there. So share my screen here. So the monster of them all was CAR, which is Avis Budget Group, which is, I believe, a rental car company. Avis. Now, let's go to the backstory. Let me actually pull up Tesla. So Tesla has been on a huge run because them and Hertz have a deal, or I guess Hertz ordered, I believe, what, 40, 50,000, maybe I heard 100,000, so whatever the number was, a large sum of Tesla electric vehicles that Hertz ordered to like put on their fleet, to put in like electric car as an option for a rental car. Okay, so Tesla ran from 880s and all the way up to 1200 as of yesterday. It tapped that today, and we had a red day. We actually did sell off today, but clearly the theme is right, like electric cars and rental car companies seems to be a new thing. It seems pretty self-explanatory that like, duh, this should have been happening a long time ago, but whatever the case may be, now it's finally becoming a thing. So out came news that Avis, who is again another car rental company, came out and said, we're going to add Teslas to our fleet, or we're going to add electric vehicles. Okay. So they start squeezing, I mean, massively. I mean, if we go to the daily chart, I mean, look at what their normal price action is like. Very fluid, very stable, not too volatile, small range days at best. It can get overextended like it is kind of like it was up kind of in this grind, but certainly not any big green days, no super major big volatility. But today it just exploded, right? Massive volume. We go from 170 to a high of like 550. Okay. So you kind of created this little like mini sector of car rental companies that potentially are adding electric vehicles to their cars, or to their fleet, I should say. And this big, huge move started HTZ to follow. I mean, HTZ was red on the day, and all of a sudden we had this huge squeeze from low a day to high a day in a matter of, I mean, what is this, like 30 minutes? So almost like a full sector momentum to play out in a matter of about an hour. And so I see car running, right? And I see a parabolic short happening, right? If you watch my most recent trading monthly recap, I talked about fun. I talked about DWAC. I talked about mistakes there and how I handled it. And it was still a setup I wanted to trade. And so car is setting up, like it's doing the same thing. Okay. It's halting up. It's getting overextended. And so I look to short. I start shorting a little bit in the mid to low 30 or 300. So like 340-ish. I then add one more time before it halts down into 350s. So I end up having like a 340 average or so. It halts down, it reopens, I cover about a fourth of my position, lock in some money, and then it bounces. And the normal framework is like once the parabolic's died, there's usually a bounce and then a fade off. And the most key important rule to follow is once that parabolic is set, like I've said, this is an opposite dip buy. So once you dip buy a stock, that new low, that panic dip buy is set, that's your risk. Same thing with parabolic. When it goes parabolic and that new high is set after a halt down, that's your risk. Like you have to respect that, or otherwise, I mean, we're going to go over it. This is what happens. So covered a fourth right out the open, was waiting to cover the rest sub 300. I really thought we could break down and test VWAP back in the 270s, 280s. We don't do that. Okay. We keep going. The bounce comes right back to highs. We dip a little bit on, okay, great. That was the bounce. I didn't add. I just thought, okay, we're going to keep fading. We hold up, we keep holding up, we keep holding, and all of a sudden, boom, we're out new highs. And I just freeze. I just say this overwhelming like clamp on me just said, you're not cutting. And I didn't. So broke the biggest rule in the book, not cutting your losses, especially when I had a risk. Set, then that's always how you're going to keep yourself as safe as possible with parabolic shorts. And I didn't, right? So it keeps going. We're up over 400. We're up over 450. We're up over 500. And at this point, again, I would highly recommend you go watch our last twist, because I talk about fun, or watch it in my monthly recap, because I go over the scenarios of, okay, if you miss time a parabolic short, obviously the number one scenario again is to time it correctly. If you time it correctly, more times than not, you're going to be in a very great position. And a parabolic short will be a very profitable setup for if you're a good short seller. The second scenario is if you time it poorly, how much dollar size do you have in the stock in proportion to your account, so that if you, worst comes to worst, if you do get stubborn, if you do actually start in early, if you don't have it, if you haven't timed it well, you know, how much damage or pain can your account take before you actually take a loss that is not recoverable, right? And so thankfully, again, this is why, you know, in many ways I dodged the bullet today, right? Because even though I didn't cut, even though I let this thing go way too far against me, which still, even just hopefully you hear my voice, I'm just like, it's just sickening that let's get to this point. But I got away with it because, again, the dollar position of my total account was small enough to ride through this kind of a squeeze. Now, does that justify me not cutting? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm going to probably think about this for the rest of the day. I'm going to probably take a chill pill the rest of the week, size down, and make sure I'm back to cutting losses, because I don't think I've been this stubborn in a very long time. So anyway, I got away with it. I dodged the bullet because, again, my position size was small enough. And because I actually covered some into like that fourth down here, that saved me. If I didn't cover any and I had my full position still and didn't cut it, I would have been in a lot of trouble. Okay. So once we're going over 500 at this point, you know, yes, I'm worried. Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I don't feel good about it. Although at the same time, it's also another parabolic short setting up. So I think most traders would either if you were a disciplined trader, you cut it and you said, I took a loss. Okay, I'll give it a second try on the second parabolic. I think the worst case scenario would be not to cut it and then just keep adding and adding and adding and adding and adding, because that's a recipe for disaster. This could have gone to 600, 700, who knows? And so when it got up to 550 and was halted up here, I thought long and hard about my position, about my dollar size, just again, thinking about the entire scenario playing out. Again, dollar size portion of my account, the fact that I covered a fourth down in the low 300s. I did the math of the percentage of my account. I said, okay, I can afford $50,000 more dollars, right, of my account to add to this position. But after that, it is done, it is out. And whatever new top is, I have to cut it. No ifs, ands, or buts. It has to be done right then and there. So the two scenarios, right? The first scenario is timing well. I timed it pretty well on the first parabolic, right? Like I said, I was ended up shorting into like the 340s, 350s, covered a fourth into the low 300s. But unfortunately, again, because I didn't cut it, now all of a sudden, the first scenario, again, for this second parabolic is completely out the door. Again, I've put myself in a position that is not ideal. And although, yes, it is still somewhat a form of a, you know, not as risky as if I just kept adding and adding and adding and adding and adding and not realizing where my account's at, how much can it take, if this and that. It's still not okay. It's still not the scenario I want to be in. And unfortunately, I'm in it again. Okay. So like I said, I realized I had $50,000 more dollars to add to this position, to be at my max amount of my account, to where I could feel safe in running through any type of squeeze. And so I did that. But I also knew, now that this was the second parabolic, this last and final 50,000 share ad, or not 50,000 shares, $50,000 ad had to be the top. And if it wasn't, I had to start downsizing, right? Like I don't want to, I can't keep telling myself that, you know, I'll just add one more time, or I'll just reach my dollar position on my account and then not time it well, right? I've already made too many mistakes. I made the mistake with fun. I just made the mistake with car, not cutting it. Like, I can't keep just relying on that second scenario to justify why I should keep holding, right? So I said to myself, once I add these last $50,000 worth of position size, this has to be it. Like, I cannot let myself go and back into the second scenario and just keep thinking it's okay, because the reality is it's not. So I stayed patient. I stayed very patient, and I pretty much ended up getting near the top, like a 540 average, or not 540 average, 540 ad. Again, it was like, I mean, it was literally like about 100 shares, because that's about $50,000 right there. And I was done. And then it halted down, right? So now at this point, if it breaks over 550, I'm like, I have to cut it. I have to be out. There is no effort, ands, or buts. At this point, it already would have been my new biggest loss had I cut it, or if I had to cut it over 550. And I, you know, as you can see, it panicked. It started panicking, started halting down. And luckily, because from prior experience, seeing how choppy it was of a parabolic on the way up, I had a feeling on the way back down, it was also going to be very choppy, which it was. So I was actually pretty patient with it. Ended up covering it all in this little sideways action around view up, thinking it was going to start holding view up and potentially bounce. Obviously it didn't do that, but being down what was a new biggest loss, unrealized, turned into a $3,000 gain. So again, from maybe an inexperienced or newbie trader that might think, Kyle, that's great, you avoided a loss and you made money. And it's like, no, that is just such the wrong way to think about it. Yes, I turned green, which is better than losing, of course, in terms of numerically, yeah. But the risk reward, the following the rules, the process, and the safe trading that's got me here is not this at all. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. This is just so unacceptable. And going forward, it's like I have to, even though, yes, like I've said, this second scenario keeps me somewhat safe in the sense that I can ride out a parabolic if I mistime it. It should be the last case scenario. And if I am in that scenario, I need to either be cutting. I shouldn't have to or want to put myself in that scenario. That is like the last scenario. That is like the last place I want to be, not the place that I should be feeling comfortable being, solely because it makes me feel quote unquote like safe, that I'm not going to actually take a loss. Right. And so, yes, I dodged a bullet. Yes, I turned up green, but reflecting on this trade and in my trading journal that I have, like I'll write every rule in the book that I broke, and what I need to do to fix that. And again, I mean, it's silly that I have to say this, but it's just something that we all need to remember, and that everyone's human. And sometimes you break the rules of, like, you have to cut losses. You have to, right? Like, if I had just cut it at this new high, I could have given it a whole nother shot and retimed it even better. And because this timing was okay, but I only covered a fourth because it didn't break down low enough. This time it broke down plenty. It broke down from 550 to 300, like almost 250 points a share. Like, this would have been the time to much better time it, and get a much bigger move out of it, and not have to recut it when it made a new high, as versus the first parabolic. So, going in hindsight, like, cutting it is always the better option, because in this situation where it goes even higher, you get yourself a better chance. You don't risk ruin. Your risk reward of the trade is way better off than have you just stubbornly held and hold, like I did. And so I just hope you guys learned something from that. And so to get kind of a better picture of how my day ended up going total in a total view. So I actually ended up the day making 30 grand, right? So you might think, like, damn, like, to me, I'm like, damn, Kyle, you're a lucky bastard today. Like, you really are, because it could have been so much the other direction. And I think the best thing I could have done was not let this trade affect me in so much, in a way, and really just hunker down on the other plays. Like, literally, like, okay, made a mistake, but don't let that. The last thing you want to do is let one poorly managed trade influence other poorly managed trade. That's how revenge trading starts. I mean, that's how FOMO starts. And luckily, that's something I've gotten really down to a really good science, just from a mental standpoint, because I rarely do that ever. So in terms of other plays as to how I got to 30 grand, because yes, okay, so I technically made 3K off this play. Risk reward, like I said, was terrible. But where did I make the other 27 grand, right? Like, what the heck? So the other one was HEZ, right? HEZ, like I said, was a sympathy with CAR, because they're both rental companies who are putting electric vehicles into their fleet of rental cars. When CAR was going parabolic the first time and started halting down, that's when Hertz was going parabolic and started also turning. Now, the advantage here with Hertz is that Hertz is still an OTC stock. So there's no halts. There's no, like I said, volatility halts. The stock doesn't stay halted for 5 minutes. The stock has to keep trading on the OTC market. So when, CAR halted down, when this huge weakness kind of hit it, HEZ, there was no point in return, right? The selling started. And once that starts, like I said, there's no halts. So the tidal wave of selling came in. So that when that happened, again, and like I timed it well on the first parabolic, I timed it well on HEZ as well. So I ended up getting short like a 45 average. Didn't fill full size. Actually ended up canceling my orders, just because I kind of got faked out. I almost thought it was going to keep being choppy, kind of like how CAR was for a second on a few of these halts. but I filled a little bit more than half size. And as you can see, like the tidal wave of selling was already there. It was coming. It was too late. Ended up covering it on the first turn where you see this green candle at 39-ish. So I pretty much took it from 45 to 39, made about 15 grand on this trade. Yes, did it pull down more? But again, I'm just happy to take it. I did not want to keep holding and have it bounce. I tried reshorting this bounce here at just over 40. I missed. So I never touched HEZZ again. And this parabolic was just the easiest, I wouldn't say easiest, but the most simple, efficient, energy-wise play that made me half my day today. Okay. So that was much better. Much better. Second play later in the afternoon was OCGN. OCGN has been running up the last few days. I believe they have some kind of approval or news on whether they're, I don't know if it's a vaccine or it's some kind of drug or vaccine that they have is looking to have an event or news release tomorrow. And I think it's approved. I don't know the exact specifics. The point is it's kind of like a run up into the news scenario and a potentially sell the news scenario. So I didn't really even think about shorting it today. I thought I was going to short it to like tomorrow, the next day. But when it started just panicking, right, when it had this massive pull, I missed it because I just didn't think it was going to just collapse like this. But however, once it collapsed, I pretty much was confident now, like, okay, this is backside. Like it's incredibly difficult for a stock like this to recover, at least in a short period of time. So once this bounced back into the mid fours, I was like, yep, we're gonna short this. There's now all this like support, now resistance in the mid fours, plenty of resistance in 15 area and the mid 15. So I thought even if it got to VWAP, my thesis would still be intact. And I actually might even look to add and risk kind of above VWAP and more in like the mid 15 area. So I immediately started shorting. Once it kind of started topping out and 1450 looked like to be the top, I added a little bit more. I panicked down here. I covered about a fourth of my position, bounced one more time, held red, and then this new flush to a new low day, I covered the rest and I made a little bit over 10 grand there. Never touched it the rest of the day. I had a feeling after two harsh panics like this, it's pretty tough for a stock to just keep on bleeding. So when it bounced into this for the rest of the day, I really didn't care to reshort it. And then I don't know if I exactly know what happened late day, but people are anticipating the news maybe again. People want to potentially gamble overnight or into pre-market when the news gets released. So it squeezed right back. So, and that's kind of what I meant. I said by like, after such a hard crack like this, it's going to be very hard for a stock to come back in a short period of time, meaning it wasn't going to do it in the next hour or so. But late day, I mean, this is kind of why I stopped shorting it here, because I just thought to myself, like the easy money, the predictable money that I recognize and know was this bounce short and this cover into new low a day. It's not shorting into this like secondary or third bounce and then getting squeezed and not knowing why it's squeezing back and then just potentially getting stubborn like I was on car. So all that. So I wanted to just take where the easy money and predictable money was. I did that. So now between HEZ and OCGN, I'm up like maybe a little over 26K or so. Tesla here, I did take a small short on Tesla just because, is it a mega cap? I mean, over $1 trillion market cap? Yes. Am I actually bearish on Tesla? No. Like I have a car ordered from them. Hopefully we'll get it at some point here. But just from a basic technical standpoint, I did think it was going to have a red day, and that's why I did short. Ended up getting like a 1186 average, not the best average. I really would have liked to get it higher up the 1200 area, but just didn't manage it the best. Managed it pretty well because my risk was really, I picked the right risk level, which is essentially I picked it like yesterday's highs, which was like 1210. So I did get close to getting stopped out as I was shorting into the spike. It did almost stop me out, but I stayed in it, covered a little bit into this panic, covered a little bit more into this fade. Try to hold it all day long to see if we can potentially fade to new lows. But once we spiked up here, I just covered on this dip thinking like clearly, again, this is a very big boy stock, not one I typically like to be aggressive or super patient on. So, ended up covering it all on this dip, ended up making another 3 or 4K there. So that's how we got to 30K in the day. But hopefully you can just see that lesson from good trading, good safe trading on all three of these with risk management, with a risk in mind, with the willingness to cut it, wasn't necessarily oversized. And I think that's lesson two. And that's why I want to tell myself, and I'm going to size down for the rest of the week, because one of this, I think the side effects and potentially why I didn't want to cut CAR was because when you kind of size up it a bit, and then you're faced with cutting that loss, and it's a bigger loss than you're used to, there's almost a new level of discipline and a new level of emotional control that you need, right? You need to be able to cut a new loss at a new biggest like number, or just a bigger number than you're used to. And with CAR, I wasn't willing to accept that. And all of these I was. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. And then in terms of like, again, risk reward wise per play, I mean, all these other plays were so much better, right? In terms of efficiency, energy, these plays are what put me up 30 grand in the day, right? This play almost caused me my new biggest loss. And it's my fault. It's not the play. I'm not saying like it's the play's fault. It was 100% my fault. And in fact, to play vice versa of this whole risk reward lesson I want to get across is that, like I said, if I had cut it, if I had been disciplined, like I am 99.9% of the time, I could have reshorted and timed this. And this could have been a massive trade. Could have been a massive win for me. If I had just accepted the loss, cutting it here, reshorting it, I would have made way more than I would have lost cutting it and then some, considering that it faded quite nicely. So, like I said, going forward, I need to size down. Going forward, I need to make sure that I'm going to stick to timing it well. And if I can't time it well, I need to start like just practice cutting it, because just kind of using that second scenario of my position of my account as a kind of like a crutch, it's just not the safe way to do it. It is not how I got here. Like I said, it's not how and again, like I said, I can get away with that because I have a large account. When I was first learning parabolics, that second scenario was not an option. Like it wasn't. So if you're learning this, like it's the odds are it's not an option for you. It's really not an option for anybody. Like I hope you get the point of like, it is there to keep me safe in the worst case scenarios, but that's what they're for. The worst case scenarios. You never really want to be there. So I'm kind of rambling on, but hopefully you guys get it. Like I said, going forward, sizing down, taking a chill back. I mean, to even though Jack and Mariana couldn't make it because they dealt with some very similar scenario that I did. I know Jack ended up losing money. I don't know about Mariana's situation, but in terms of like when we're dealt with like a situation like this, you have to recognize they also affect you, like in terms of energy, emotionally. And so to say that I can just brush it off and not think about it is absolute lie. So 100% going to take a little chill pill the rest of the week, make sure I'm good, make sure I'm back to, following my rules. And stop sharing here. At the end of the day, like I'm just sharing this because I'm human, right? You might see me like, oh my gosh, she's making so much money, or this or that, or any trader that's making a lot of money. You might think that they're so good. How do they make it look so easy? The reality is we're human, and we make mistakes. And today was a big one for me. And many other traders like me, Jack and Mariana are public about it. And there are many other traders who've been public about it, but there's many who aren't and are also took losses today. So it's a part of the game. You should do everything in your power to stop it. But again, we're human and it happens. The best thing you can do is not try to fight it in terms of like that it didn't happen. You try to hide it, acknowledge it, accept that the fact you made a mistake, and that will, essentially make it that much better to, reduce the chances of it happening again in the future. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate you just listening in, and hopefully you really learned something, because I'll probably watch this again multiple times so I can just get the lesson in my head, because no trader can afford to do what's been done today and expect to be trading for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So very good lesson. Thanks again, guys, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Thanks so much for watching and being part of the StocksToTrade community. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but we can't do it without you guys. So if you like what we're doing here and you want to hear more, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.